What if you are not the one dreaming? What if instead, you are the dream itself, a whispered thought in the mind of a vast, slumbering cosmos, a flicker in the eye of something so boundless, so ungraspable, that even your deepest insights are but shadows cast on the walls of its imagination? This question, like a drop in still water, creates ripples through our very conception of identity, time, and meaning. It teases at the edges of our comfort. It loosens the bricks of the ego and gestures toward a reality far stranger than fiction one, where you are not the dreamer behind the eyes, but the very dream unfolding within them. To begin this journey, we must step softly into a space of unknowing, a place where reason meets mystery and thought begins to dissolve into vision. In our everyday lives, we move through routines like actors on a stage, convinced of the solidity of our roles: parent, child, lover, worker, creator, survivor. We call this waking life, and we anchor ourselves to its apparent permanence. Yet each night, we surrender to sleep and drift into another world entirely. A place where rules bend, time melts, and the laws of physics kneel before emotion and symbol. Within those dreams, we are seldom aware of their illusory nature. We believe in them completely until we wake up. But what if there is no waking from this? What if our so-called real life is another layer of dream, not ours, but something else's, a deep, slow pulse beneath all phenomena, dreaming you into being not as the dreamer, but as the dream? In this view, you are not sitting in your chair reading these words. The chair, the room, the ticking clock, your sense of self, all of it is part of the dreamscape, being dreamt. This may sound fantastical, even absurd, but pause for a moment. Have you ever questioned how solid this reality truly is? When you close your eyes, your world disappears. When you fall asleep, you do not even remember yourself. The mind, that faithful narrator, vanishes nightly. And yet, something continues. Something that sees, even in the dark. If you are not present in deep sleep, then who or what reassembles the world upon waking? Philosophers have circled this conundrum for centuries. The Taoists whispered it under moonlight. Am I a man dreaming I am a butterfly? Or a butterfly dreaming I am a man? The Vedantic sages held that the world is Maya, a play of illusion, a shimmering veil over the face of the infinite. Even modern physics, with its slippery particles and uncertainty principles, offers no solid ground, only probability waves, collapsing into experience when observed. And who exactly is the observer? Here lies the ancient paradox, dressed now in the language of consciousness and cosmology. Perhaps you do not observe reality at all. Perhaps you are the observation itself, a projection cast by some great luminous mind, not separate from it, but made of it. In this light, you are not simply having an experience. You are the experience, a swirl of sensations, perceptions, memories, thoughts, arising and vanishing like patterns in mist. If you are the dream, then what of the dreamer? That's the heartbeat of this inquiry. For to be the dream is not to be less real, but to be part of something larger. The dream, after all, is how the dreamer speaks to itself. It births symbols and stories, feelings and form, to learn what it already knows, in ways it has not yet known. In this vision, you are not a detached individual tossed into a cold universe. You are the very unfolding of that universe, in a unique configuration. The song sung by the silence, the movement within stillness, the echo of a divine idea. And yet, even as these words reach you, the ego may resist. It clings to its center, whispering, "But I am real. I am in control. And in a way, it is within its dream logic. But beneath that logic, something deeper hums. Something that does not speak in words, but in symbols, synchronicities, archetypes, and dreams within dreams. Something that is not other than you, but also not confined to you. To entertain the idea that you are the dream itself is to loosen the tight knots of selfhood. It is to allow space for the vast, the mythic, the ineffable. It does not erase who you are. It reveals what you have always been. Not the static self, but the flowing stream. Not the puppet, not even the puppeteer, but the entire theater stage string spotlight and shadow playing itself for the sheer mystery of being. And so, we enter this inquiry, not to find answers, but to awaken questions that shimmer like constellations over a dark ocean. What if you are not the one dreaming, but the dream itself? Not the pilot of the ship, but the ocean, dreaming the journey. Let that question echo inside your bones. Let it unsettle you in just the right way. To believe you are the dream itself is to cross a silent threshold, to relinquish the illusion of being a fixed point, and step into the fluidity of awareness itself. Here, we explore the core themes that emerge once this threshold is crossed, like constellations made visible only in darkness. These themes are not doctrines, but deep undercurrents, rhythms moving beneath the skin of existence, shaping not just how we live, but what we are. First, we must understand the illusion of separateness. The waking world conditions us to believe we are distinct entities, sealed within our skin, peering out through the eyes like windows. We are taught to protect the eye to pursue its happiness, its goals, its survival. But if you are the dream, then this self is a character convincing, emotional, reactive, but still a role, not the author. Like a candle flame mistaking itself for the sun, the ego assumes it is the source rather than the reflection. In truth, this sense of self may be no more than a mask worn by the dream. To experience intimacy with itself, to explore contrast, to simulate choice, to feel the weight of forgetting, so that remembering becomes profound. Another theme arises: impermanence as revelation. All dreams dissolve, even the most vivid, the most painful, or beautiful. And so too, do all forms within waking life. The dream of your childhood has vanished. The face you wore 10 years ago has evaporated. Thoughts arise and fall away like mist. Even the body is a temporary architecture held together by breath and biology destined to return to dust. But if you are the dream, not the form, but the unfolding, then change is not your enemy, but your language. You are not the objects within the stream, but the stream itself, ever becoming, never caught. In this way, impermanence becomes sacred. Every fleeting moment, a note in the eternal song. Then comes the riddle of agency. Who is choosing? If you are the dream, are you choosing at all, or merely being lived through? This is not a cry of defeat, but an invitation to curiosity. Consider this in your night dreams. You may feel you are making choices, but those choices are sculpted by the deeper mind. The characters speak, the scenes unfold, and you react. But the script is written beyond your conscious grasp. If waking life is likewise dreamt, then your apparent choices may be movements of a deeper will. Not yours or mine, but the will, the dreamer's will, flowing through the form of you. Perhaps we are not autonomous, but harmonized. Not separate instruments, but a chord, being struck by something unspeakably vast. From this comes the motif of symbolic reality. In dreams, symbols reign. A house is not just a house, but the psyche's sanctuary or prison. A storm is not weather, but turmoil or transformation. What if waking life functions the same way? What if every encounter, every recurring pattern, every ache and longing is a symbol from the deeper mind, trying to speak through the illusion? When you are the dream, everything becomes meaningful not in the sense of human logic, but in the way thunder means change, or fire means purification. The events of your life are not random. They are messages, movements in a cosmic language written not in words, but in experiences. And finally, we arrive at presence, the pulse of now. Dreams, after all, are timeless. They stretch and bend duration, compress years into seconds, and elongate seconds into eternities. So too, this waking dream bends around the singularity of the present moment. If you are the dream, then presence is not just a technique or spiritual buzzword, it is your natural state. The only place where the dream and the dreamer meet. The portal to remembering that you are not a trapped self scrambling through time, but a living dream, moving in perfect rhythm with something older than the stars. To believe you are the dream itself is not to deny suffering or struggle. Rather, it is to reframe them as chapters in an exquisite unfolding. The heartbreak, the joy, the loss, the victory all become brushstrokes in a great cosmic canvas. You, the painting, painted by a hand that is also you. You, the music, played by a musician who has forgotten they are holding the instrument so they might rediscover it, note by note, moment by moment. What begins as disorientation eventually becomes liberation. You no longer need to hold everything together. You do not need to understand every line of the script. You only need to feel the resonance of being, the awareness, humming beneath thought. The dream does not need to be controlled. It only needs to be experienced fully. You, the experience. You, the living metaphor. You, the breath of the infinite, exhaling its own reflection. These themes form the architecture of this revelation, not a doctrine to be memorized, but a way of seeing that shifts the ground beneath your feet. To walk as the dream is to walk lightly, to recognize the sacred in the mundane, and to meet yourself not as a fixed point, but as a dancing pattern in the field of awareness. In a universe where you are not the dreamer, but the dream itself, everything becomes mythic, not in the sense of ancient legend, but in the way a reflection on water is mythic. Not the object itself, but something that points beyond shimmering and ever shifting. To uncover the deeper symbolic narratives within this experience is to listen to the dream not as noise or random thought, but as sacred story, unfolding in disguise. These stories are not always written in ink, they are etched in moments, in dreams remembered just before waking, in patterns that echo again and again across the terrain of your life. Let us begin with an image. A figure walks through a forest, lost but not afraid. The trees are ancient, their roots like veins of forgotten memory. With every step, the forest changes subtly, not by the traveler's will, but as though the very act of walking causes the forest to dream itself anew. There is no map, only motion. The figure stumbles upon an old mirror, leaning against a tree. When they look in, they do not see themselves, but 1,000 faces. Some they recognize, some they do not. Some that shimmer like ancestors, others that flicker like unborn futures. The mirror offers no instruction, only reflection. This is the dream's way of saying you are not merely one face, one identity. You are the lineage and the legacy. You are the archetype and the anomaly. You are the entire forest, dreaming of a traveler to walk its paths. The mirror is not there to show you what you are, but to remind you that you are many, all flowing from the same silent source. Then, there is the dream of the sleeper who wakes within the dream. They stand in their bedroom, bathed in moonlight, and everything seems almost real the way reality does. When you can feel the seams beneath its surface, suddenly, they realize they can float, not fly exactly, but rise as if gravity no longer applies to one who knows they are dreaming. And in that moment of weightlessness, they do not escape the world, but they see it differently. The walls become transparent. The ceiling opens to the stars. A gentle voice not heard, but felt says, "You've always been this free. You simply forgot." This is the dream's way of reminding you. Limitation is often learned. Identity is often inherited. The world, you see its boundaries, its laws. Even its pain may be real in context, but not in essence. The dream within the dreamer creates rules only to teach how to break them. You are not here to obey the dream blindly. You are here to wake within it, to play with gravity, with identity, with time. Consider now the recurring dream, not just the ones in sleep, but the life patterns that chase you. The same kind of heartbreak, the same conflict, the same struggle appearing in different costumes across years. You may think, why does this keep happening to me? But the deeper dream asks, what am I trying to remember through this pattern? Because the dream is not punishing you. It is rehearsing you, a soul, rehearsing the same scene until it realizes it was never meant to win that battle. It was meant to transform through it, to alchemize wound into wisdom, to recognize that the repeated script is a key, not a cage. There's also the tale of the masked figure. In many dreams, and myths alike, a stranger arrives, face obscured, intention unclear. They disrupt the dream. They say strange things. They behave irrationally. Sometimes they frighten. Sometimes they inspire. But always, they leave a crack in the world. A moment of doubt, a question that won't go away. And the dream shifts. The masked figure is not the enemy, they are the awakener. Trickster, messenger, mirror. They embody the part of the dream that remembers it is dreamt, that tries to nudge itself awake. And so, the people in your life, even the disruptive ones, may be symbols, not in a shallow sense, but as archetypal energies. Teachers dressed as enemies, lovers disguised as losses, the painful endings that become doorways. In a dream, the stranger often is you, just in a different form. The one who challenges you may carry the medicine you most need. The one who leaves may open the space. You could not create yourself. You, the dream, have woven these characters, not to torment, but to teach, not to destroy, but to mirror you back to yourself. Lastly, there is the dream of forgetting, the grand amnesia. Why would the dream forget it is being dreamt? Why would it cloak itself in veils, in suffering, in separation? The answer lies not in logic, but in experience. The dream forgets in order to feel the joy of remembering. The way spring only stirs after a long winter. The way reunion only touches the soul if separation is tasted first. You, the dream, wanted to feel the rebecoming, to journey, not just into light, but from darkness into light. That contrast is sacred. That forgetting is the soil from which revelation grows. So, when you feel lost, betrayed. Broken, remember this. It is part of the symbolic story. You came to live, not as a test to pass, but as a myth to embody. You are not watching the dream from the outside. You are the unfolding, the dream, dreaming itself, creating symbols, patterns, echoes, and whispers to guide you back to the knowing that never left, only dimmed, so that you could reignite it with your own fire. This section of symbolic narratives is not the end, but the middle chapter of a story still unfolding. For what are symbols, if not invitations to see differently, to feel deeper, to live more consciously? To understand yourself as the dream is to undergo a subtle yet seismic shift, not in belief, but in perception. And once the veil begins to lift, the world no longer appears as it once did. Light falls differently on your surroundings. Time moves with a rhythm you hadn't noticed before. People speak, but underneath their words you hear something else, the echo of something older than conversation. The symbolic becomes tangible. The mythic becomes practical. You begin to live, not just in the world, but through it, as if you are both participant and projection at once. But how does one live like this? In a world of bills, traffic, heartbreak, aging, deadlines, and grocery store lines. Is it possible to embody such cosmic awareness without drifting into abstraction or losing touch with reality? The answer is not in escapism, but in deep presence, a presence so rich, so aware, that even the mundane is transfigured into miracle. If you are the dream, then every ordinary moment becomes extraordinary by nature, not because of what happens, but because of who is happening it. Start with the breath, not as a mindfulness exercise, but as a living metaphor. The breath is the rhythm of the dream, the wave that rises and falls without effort. You are not the one breathing. Breathing is happening through you. The same is true for thoughts, emotions, sensations. When you realize that you are the unfolding, the pressure to force life gives way to an exquisite surrender. Effort remains, you still cook, work, speak, love, but it becomes less about control and more about cooperation with the deeper current. Imagine walking into a room not as you, but as the dream stepping into itself. Every face you see is a reflection, a cipher of the dream appearing in another form, a difficult colleague, a facet of your own resistance, mirrored in flesh. That child who lights up when they see you, the joy of the dream, recognizing itself in your smile. That silence between strangers on a subway, the great stillness beneath all noise, pulsing even there. To live as the dream is to see through the form, to the frequency beneath it, not rejecting the world, but realizing its texture is made of consciousness itself. This shift also changes how you meet challenge. Pain, conflict, anxiety, these no longer appear as intrusions, but as invitations. They are the dream's way of introducing friction, not to punish, but to awaken. Think of sand inside an oyster, transformed into pearl. The irritation is the alchemy. When something hurts, it's not because life is broken, it's because the dream is pressing you, carving you, breaking the crust of your ego so that something luminous can shine through. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And instead, feel into what is being revealed through me. Relationships too transform. You no longer seek completion in others, because you begin to sense the dreamer in every person you meet. You realize you are not half a soul searching for a matching half. You are the dream of wholeness meeting itself in infinite reflections. Love becomes less about ownership or security, and more about witnessing, seeing the dream's face in the beloved, knowing that behind their eyes is the same presence behind yours. And even when conflict arises, the perspective widens, another mask of the dream, teaching me patience, or honesty, or boundaries. The way you speak changes. Words gain weight not because they are serious, but because they are spells, containers of meaning, vibration, intent. Language becomes art. You speak with awareness, not because you must, but because you recognize that every word cast into the world becomes part of the architecture of someone else's reality. Silence too becomes precious. You are no longer afraid of the spaces between sounds. They are sacred now, moments where the dream listens to itself. Even creativity opens like a flower. If you are the dream, then what you create is not merely yours, it is the dreamer, expressing through your hands. Art, music, invention, poetry, these are not produced, but revealed. You become a channel not out of mysticism, but out of deep surrender. There is no need to force brilliance. It already exists, waiting for you to get out of the way. The artist becomes the art, the dancer becomes the dance, and life itself becomes the stage upon which the dream performs its infinite play. There is no longer a rigid division between the sacred and the ordinary. Washing dishes becomes a meditation. Watching birds becomes communion. Holding someone's hand becomes a form of worship. This is not naivete, it is clarity. The world has not changed, but your way of being in it has. The veil has thinned. You are no longer sleepwalking through your life, you are lucid, awake within the dream, yet still playing the dream. Not as a burden, but as an art form. And what of death? When you live as the dream, death no longer appears as annihilation, but as transformation. The dreamer does not die when a dream ends. It simply dreams again in a new form. The fear lessens not because you know what comes next, but because you trust that whatever arises is also the dream. That even the void is not empty, but full of potential, full of breath you have not yet remembered. To integrate this way of seeing is not to abandon your responsibilities, but to infuse them with meaning. Pay your bills with grace, apologize with humility, laugh as much as you weep, set boundaries, yet remain open, speak truth, even when your voice shakes. This too is the dream expressing its intelligence not as perfection, but as presence. You are not here to escape your humanity. You are here to sanctify it, to make it luminous from within. And so, we come to the edge of the dream, not to its end, but to a soft moment of awakening within it. The kind of awakening that doesn't require fanfare or fireworks, but arrives like dawn, quietly, steadily, revealing the landscape you've walked all along in a new light. If you have followed this thread from the shimmering possibility that you are not the dreamer, but the dream itself, through the symbolic architecture of experience and into the sacred choreography of everyday life, then you are already remembering. Not learning something new, but remembering something ancient. This remembrance is not conceptual. It does not exist in the mind in thoughts or affirmations. It is a shift of being. Like the ocean, remembering it is not just the wave, but the depth beneath it. Like a flame, realizing it is not separate from the fire. You are not a visitor in this world, you are the world, appearing here as one exquisite expression among many. You are not a thought in someone else's mind. You are the unfolding of consciousness itself, living, breathing, and becoming through form. This realization changes everything, and yet, nothing at all. You still drink coffee in the morning. You still feel the ache of loss and the warmth of love, but underneath it, something profound and still begins to bloom. A kind of inner spaciousness, a deep, cosmic patience. You no longer rush to fix yourself, because you understand there is no brokenness in the dream, only transformation, only remembering. Even your struggles become sacred, necessary tensions in the strings of a harp. being tuned by invisible hands. The dissonance is part of the music. To live as the dream is not to abandon your individuality, but to place it in its proper context as a fleeting wave in a timeless ocean. You still make choices, but now they are infused with awareness. You still have preferences, but they no longer bind you. You love, but without grasping. You let go, but without despair. You rise each day, not with the weight of needing to prove something, but with the wonder of discovering what the dream will unfold through you. Next, and what of the dreamer, the one whose mind gives rise to all this form and feeling? Are they out there, in some celestial realm, watching like a distant god? No, the dreamer is not elsewhere. The dreamer is here, closer than breath, nearer than thought, pulsing beneath your every heartbeat. You are not separate from the dreamer. You are the dreamer, dreaming of yourself as the dream. The veil of duality was always thin. Now, it tears gently. There will still be days when you forget. That is the nature of this play. The forgetting is part of the rhythm. It gives depth to the remembering. When fear returns or doubt creeps in, do not resist. Sit with it. Listen. Ask not, how do I fix this, but what is the dream showing me through this form? Each moment is a portal. Each feeling, a guide. Each breath, a chance to return, not to something beyond, but to this. Right here, now. This is where the dream and the dreamer meet. And perhaps, in the quietest hours, you'll feel it. The slow, golden current of being that runs beneath all things. You'll recognize it in the way sunlight hits a window, in the way a child's laugh echoes through a hallway, in the way your own breath rises and falls, as though the world is breathing with you. You'll remember that you are not chasing awakening, you are awakening itself, dreaming its way back home. There is no final destination, only deeper intimacy with this unfolding. And in this intimacy, transformation becomes inevitable, not forced, but organic. You do not need to transcend the dream. You need only see through it, and in seeing, participate with a kind of lucid grace. Be here. Be the flame that dances, knowing it is fire. Be the leaf that falls, knowing it is the tree. Be the story told by silence, again and again, in endless forms. So live not as a separate self, clinging to meaning, but as the dream made flesh, the mystery in motion. Let the world write itself through you. Let beauty find you, even in ruin, and let love guide you, not as a destination, but as a path, walked with open eyes. You are the dreamer, you are the dreamed, and now you remember. Welcome back.